Good evening, and welcome to the Advisory and Finance Committee live from the Great Hall at Town Hall in Plymouth, Massachusetts. This evening's meeting is going to be conducted in a hybrid format with some participants attending physically and others attending virtually via a video conference application. Ways to watch: this meeting is airing on Comcast 9, Verizon 47, or the local Scene Stream channel, www.youtube.com/@PlymouthMeetingsLS. Any speaker may give public comment and is allotted up to 5 minutes in which to speak. Public comment can be made at the beginning or end of each meeting, or in regard to a particular agenda item the speaker wishes to be heard on. The Zoom login information for anyone who wants to attend the meeting virtually, including members of the public who wish to give comment, can use one of the following methods to do so. Join via the Zoom app. Start Zoom, then click Join and enter the meeting ID 995-2986-0638. The meeting password is 100-131. Or you can go to the Zoom website. It does require a microphone, www.zoom.us. Click Join a Meeting, and on the top right-hand side, and enter the meeting ID 995-2986-0638 and the meeting password of 100131. Or via telephone, which is voice only, dial 929-205-6099. And again, the meeting ID is 995-2986-0638 with the meeting password of 100131. I'll now take roll call. Ms. Butler.
Here.
Mr. Dunn.
Here.
Mr. Friedman. Mr. Jacinto.
Here.
Ms. Keating.
Here.
Mr. Malaguti.
Here.
Ms. O'Connor.
Here.
Mr. Ramey.
Here.
Ms. Reitman.
Here.
Ms. Richards.
Here.
Mr. Snyder.
Here.
Ms. Tompkins.
Here.
Mr. Trudell. And Mr. Vecchi.
Here.
All right, I'm here, so we have 14 in attendance and 1 absent. All right, before we dive into this evening's meeting, is there anyone who wishes to make a public comment? Either in the room here, I see no one raising their hand, and virtually, anyone wanting to make a comment? All right, great. Then we'll move right into the agenda items for this evening, starting with Article 13. Facility Capital Stabilization Fund. Ms. Lynn Barrett, Director of Finance for the town. Good evening, Ms. Barrett.
Good evening. So this article is recommended to transfer $5 million of free cash into our Facility Capital Maintenance Stabilization Fund. This fund is a special purpose stabilization fund. It was put together for purposes of having funding sources available for our facilities. The town has 32 buildings. And with the tightening of budgets and the many buildings that the town has, the town manager and I talked this fall after the certification of free cash and how much we had. We thought it was a very good idea, a prudent idea, to put $5 million away into this Facility Capital Maintenance Stabilization Fund. It's money that can be used for the future for any type of building repair or significant building repair. We have a lot of buildings, obviously, and for example, just this summer, we were talking about improvements that need to be made to Memorial Hall. And I'm not saying that that's what this would be for, but it's just an example of the amount of money that we can put into this fund and then use it for many of our buildings. Currently, right now, the balance of that fund is about $7.5 million. So putting this money into that fund would bring it up to a balance of about $12.5 million.
Does the committee have any questions for Ms. Barrett on Article 13? Yes, Ms. Richards.
Does putting this 5 million into facility capital maintenance stabilization, does that handcuff it or tie it just to that? I mean, can we ever get it out for if we need it for something else?
Yeah, so the way a special purpose stabilization fund works in the Massachusetts general laws, they just changed the laws on this. You used to have to, for any stabilization fund, to get something out of the fund, to vote something out of it, it requires a 2/3 vote. But for a special purpose stabilization fund, as long as the purpose of what you're using the fund for is the purpose of what you establish the fund for, then that's a majority vote. So you can get, if you wanted to take the money out to, do something other than facility maintenance, it would require a 2/3 vote. So it doesn't handcuff you. It's just a stronger vote required to transfer the money out for something other than facility capital maintenance.
Thank you.
Mr. Malaguti.
Thank you. With the facility stabilization fund, is there a plan in place for how we're going to be utilizing it? I know you mentioned Memorial Hall as a possibility, but as I've been on town meeting and also on FinCom, I've seen countless articles or expenditures within just the general fund budget itself for facilities maintenance and building upkeep. And I'm just wondering why we would be constantly putting it in there instead of using it for the actual needs that we're seeing firsthand.
So we talked about this also, and this fund is really for not regular routine day-to-day maintenance. That is what the operating budget is for. The reason for establishing this fund, and it happened back in, I think it was 2020 or so, it was when we were having lots of issues with many of our fire stations, and the town wanted us to focus on setting aside some money for our buildings because we don't want to get into a situation where we have to completely replace our buildings. We want to be able to have funds available for some of these significant capital maintenance projects. Currently, right now, our facility director is analyzing and reviewing all of our buildings and coming up with a plan. But there's no written plan right now as to what we are going to use this funding for. But with free cash probably not being certified in the future to the extent that it was this past year, we felt that free cash is a funding source that we use for our capital maintenance for facilities, and putting this money aside in this fund would be a good purpose for it in the future.
Any further questions,
you.
Mr. Malaguti?
Yes, once the facilities director has all the plans in place for all the buildings that we have, I know it will take time because we have to go through every single inch basically to figure out everything that's needed. Is, besides it possibly going to the select board, is it also possible for FinCom to also get some type of presentation for that so we can see the needs that need to be addressed so we can adjust as a committee in the future for budgeting?
Yeah, certainly, any expenditure for anything would obviously come before this committee because you would have to recommend to town meeting. And certainly, the plan he would put in our 10-year capital plan that we do, and we present that to Capital Improvements Committee. So we would, any of his plan would obviously be presented to this committee.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Before I recognize Mr. Snyder, I want to note that Mr. Trudell arrived at the meeting at 6 minutes after. All right. Mr. Snyder, and then I'll get to you, Mr. Friedman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay. Question on the $5 million. What if we don't take that $5 million out and have to charge taxpayers $5 million less on the tax levy?
So, Mr. Snyder, this is free cash, so this is one-time use. So this money would not be applied for, in the general operating budget, because the general operating budget, as you know, is for annual reoccurring expenses.
I understand that, but we don't have to use that money in free cash. We can leave it there, and we would then have to remove less money from the taxpayers. I mean, that.
So if you left
just
the
makes
five,
sense if you're not
if you
spending the $5
do
million.
nothing with this $5 million, it'll roll forward and it'll be recertified as part of next year's certification of free cash.
No, I understand that. All right. I'm just looking here to see what we can do to help our taxpayers because the bills are getting out of hand. And if we can do it, if we can save money, we should do it. That's, I understand that this money is going into an account and it's going to stay there and actually helps a little bit because it's a stabilization fund. So it helps our bond rating. But I'm just looking for future ways to save, I guess.
Yeah, and those are points well taken. I would just remind the folks that this is an interest-bearing account, this $5 million go into. In addition to that, as you all know, when we can use free cash for one-time expenses, that helps us reduce our borrowing, and that prevents us having to go out to borrow and accrue interest. So that alone will save our taxpayers by not having to borrow.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Friedman.
So, as being new to town, what is the current level of free cash and what is our target for free cash?
So we budget every year to have free cash certified in our budget because it's a strong financial management practice. It's looked at favorably. So we try to have probably about like between 2% and 5% of our budget every year certified in free cash. This past year, fiscal 26, at the end of 25, we had almost 23.4 million certified in free cash.
Which is, as a percentage of our operating budget, is how much?
It is
Approximately.
slightly, almost 7% of our budget.
So, my, not concern, but my question would be, we clearly ought to be planning for, capital needed to maintain the buildings. We're in the process of doing that evaluation now, which we would expect to have done within the next 6 to 9 months, year, or we have a target for that?
So Colleen Anderson's our facilities director, and there was a program, I think many of you have been on the board for a while, the town had purchased called Dude Solutions. And so they brought in an outside consultant to go through each and every one of our facilities and then identify everything from HVAC to lighting to flooring, so on and so forth, and then put that on a capital plan. And so we've been using that as a guide, but we can't use that to determine what our year-to-year needs will be. Because what we need to do is use that as a guide and then say, let's go put eyes on it. Let's do our own evaluation. Can we get another 1, 2, 3 more years out of it? And if we do that, we'll push that out. And so that's what Ms. Barrett was speaking to, that we're trying to do that evaluation now so that we can really get a sense of what our 10-year expenses are going to be using the Dude Solutions as a guide. So for example, 3 years ago, the former facilities director put in the capital improvement plan to replace all of the tile flooring in the foyer at the police department. And if any of you have been at the police department recently, you look at the flooring does not need to be replaced. So that's when we started to say, listen, this is a guide, right? Just because it says it needs to be replaced in 2025, we need to go there. We need to do our own self-evaluation and then make that determination. So we're looking at that right now. And I'd also say to the previous questions about this $5 million, you'll see on the capital improvement article request that we have only asked for what we can actually do. So we can't, we wouldn't be able to do another $5 million worth of capital improvements this year. We don't have the bandwidth to do that. So what's before you today, this year's capital improvement request is what we can do this fiscal year. The $5 million, as pointed out, would be used for future uses, knowing that we definitely have a robust free cash certification. Probably we will not see a robust free cash certification like this in probably at least the foreseeable future. So we're trying to be very conservative and use this $5 million, put it in an interest-bearing account for future use.
So one last thought.
Sure.
Ms. Barrett, so you alluded to the fact that having having this money certified in a I think you said, a stabilization fund was good in terms of our bond rating and the way it was looked on. Is there any additional benefit having it in a stabilization fund versus having it in free cash?
Yes, so when it's in a special purpose stabilization fund, Mass General Laws allows us to invest it in a variety of stocks, equities, fixed, bonds.
Right.
And in addition to general fund, where free cash is, we can only invest in short-term notes that don't go more than a year. We can do CDs, we can do money markets, that kind of thing. So it earns much more interest in a stabilization fund.
But in terms of the bond rating agencies?
The
is there
bond rating agencies?
Any advantage in that, in terms of those?
Yes, anytime that we have reserves and special purpose stabilization funds that we are reserving for special purposes, they look upon those with a positive respect towards our bond rating.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Yes, Mr. Vecchi.
Have a little feedback. Got a little better? Yeah, it is. Sorry. Hey, at least everybody's paying attention to me now. To pontificate for a second, the term free cash is more aptly stated as unallocated cash, correct? I mean, because it's not really free, it's taxpayer money. But, so my question to build off from Mr. Freeman's is, so last year we had $23.4 million of free cash in the budget. How much do we currently have and how much do we anticipate having for the remainder of the year that has not been used for a one-time purpose?
So we have a free cash policy. So the 23.4 million, anything, and we'll talk about that in some of the articles that we have coming up, but anything that we budget in excess on motor vehicle excise, that amount that gets certified in free cash, that transfers into our pavement management stabilization fund. We roll forward 10% of the free cash, and we try not to spend that. We're recommending to use $1 million of free cash in the operating budget towards the annual OPEB contribution into our OPEB trust. We used almost 600,000 of it at the fall town meeting for capital articles. We're recommending to use 9.6 million of it for capital in Article 18, which you guys will hear next week. We're recommending the 5 million to go into Facility Capital Maintenance Stabilization Fund. We're recommending in an article we'll talk about tonight, almost 1.5 million to pay off a fire truck that was authorized to borrow at town meeting. The select board voted last week to use 142,000 to replace 2 police cruisers in the operating budget. And then there are 2 articles on town meeting warrant, one from the town clerk and one from the Open Space Committee that's requesting to use, it's about almost 25,000 for those 2 articles. So those are all the allocations that we were recommending from this annual free cash amount.
So we're already anticipating 10%, which would be $2.34 million to roll forward into next year to be certified for next year's free cash?
That was what was recommended from the finance department. You'll hear in one of the future articles tonight I think it's Article 14, the Nuclear Mitigation Stabilization Fund, that the Select Board voted last night to use $500,000 of that towards that article.
All right, so then if you take a
It's
half a million
about
out, it's still.
1.8.
1.8 something that we're anticipating rolling into next year's
Yes.
certification for free cash.
Yep.
So if we, so that could be used hypothetically to offset next year's OPEB or something like that within free cash, or to supplement the operating budget by police cars or something like that again.
Yeah, I mean, we try not to use free cash, one-time revenues for annual operating recurring items, but because the budget was so tight this year, I think that's, why we're recommending it.
I don't know, and again, like I said, not to pontificate too much, but I just, the term free cash, I understand is unallocated cash. It's that we can move about, but at the end of the day, it's still taxpayer money, to Mr. Snyder's point. And anything that we could do, like if we didn't put this money in the fund and we rolled it forward to use to offset one-time expenses next year, would help us with our $2.5 million that we didn't find in our joint budget meeting the other day.
Yeah, the only clarifying statement I would make is that not all free cash is taxpayer dollars. So if we have surplus dollars from what we budget in local receipts, that falls to free cash. If we have interest gain, that falls to free cash. So free cash comes in a lot of different ways, but you're right. In the operating budget, say, for example, the fire department has $200,000 remaining in their overtime line item, that would fall to free cash, which would be, that would have been raised and appropriated through taxpayers.
But again, to speak to the taxpayers, at the end of the day, all the town's money is the taxpayers' money, whether it comes in through another revenue stream or whether it comes in through local aid or whether it comes in through excise tax. At the end of the day, it's not the town's money, it's the taxpayers' money. To Mr. Snyder's point, anything we can do to reduce the tax levy and alleviate, especially for our seniors, I think we should definitely do our due diligence on what we can do to push the money forward.
Any other questions from the committee?
I have one.
Oh, Mr. Ramey.
You had mentioned that in stabilization funds, they get invested in equities and CDs and stuff. I was just curious, how much of that is fully liquid throughout the year? If it gets used on articles, can that get used right away, or sometimes does it have to get?
Yeah, so we look at that with our investment advisor. We use Rockland Trust. We look at what the use of those funds are potentially and let them know. So about 60 to 70% of it is in something that we can make liquid very quickly. We only put about 30% of any of those special purpose stabilization funds in either equities or fixed income. And we can only invest in equities of the legal list from the Department of Revenue. So it's like 12 stocks that we can invest in. So we're not, doing high roller here. So it's very specific.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Jacinto and then Mr. Friedman.
I have the capital improvement plan request from police for rear parking lot upgrades. Would something like that come out of this fund?
So would that come out of like a facilities capital maintenance fund?
Yeah.
Most likely not if it's a parking lot. I think the establishment of this was really for buildings themselves. That particular item is on next week that we're recommending to be paid out of free cash. But I think this fund is more for buildings.
Mr. Friedman.
Thank you. So I'm doing my best to understand this. So we have 20 some odd $million in free cash certified. We're now suggesting that $5 million of that go into the stabilization fund. There's another $1 million or so in another fund. There's some other monies in another fund. So at the end, after those monies would be out of there, how much free cash would be remaining? Approximately.
About almost 1.9 million.
So of the 25 million, we're going to allocate
Of
20
23, yeah.
23 million to various funds. And some of that you said to the operating budget as well, is
Some-
it recommended?
Some to the budget and some to projects, capital. The budget item is $1 million, but that recommendation is to go into our OPEB trust fund. So we budget every year in our operating budget, 1% of our covered payroll to go into our OPEB trust fund to be the asset that offsets our OPEB liability.
So, if we were to approve all of these things, or if town meeting was to approve all these things, at the end of that, we would only have unallocated free cash of $2.5 million,
About almost 1.9.
$1.9 million.
Yeah.
On a 300 and, or 270 or $80 million budget, operating budget.
At the end of this.
Yeah.
But we're estimating we are going to have free cash at the end of this fiscal year.
So there'll be
So
additional
we'll-
free cash.
There'll be free cash that'll get certified next year.
Yeah, so you're expecting by the end, sorry, you're expecting by the end of, thank you. We're expecting by the end of this, by the end of the 2027 fiscal year, it would generate, or you're saying
So
by
we're
the end of
gonna- so fiscal-
2026 fiscal year?
Yeah, every year, fiscal '26, when we close the books, we
Okay.
send our balance sheets up to the state, and the state will do a calculation to determine what our unallocated free cash amount is in
Okay.
our fund balance.
So you're saying you expect if we were to do these allocations and we had 1.9 million left at the end, if all
Yep.
those were done, by the end of fiscal 2026, when it was certified, that free cash would again be at the 20,
I don't expect it's going to be at the $20 million level,
Okay.
but it's going to be somewhere around 15 million, I would
and,
say.
and of the various restricted funds of restricted cash that we would now have in these various stabilization funds. I don't mean to get you catch you unawares here, but you have, is there a rough idea as to, is that $30 million or $20 million or $50 million or something like that?
That is in these particular
And
stabilization
all
funds?
the stabilization funds that might, in town.
So we have a general purpose stabilization fund,
Right.
which has about $15 million in
Okay.
it. The facility maintenance stabilization fund has $7.4 million. The pavement management stabilization fund has about $5 to $6 million. That is it on special purpose. Our general stabilization and and nuclear mitigation has almost 11 million, thank you.
Okay, and if others, if I'm being redundant here, I'm just trying to get my head around how much, not to use a too technical term, rainy day kind of funds we have out there, if we were need to find those funds for various,
Yeah, the
purposes,
only
right?
rainy day
Right.
one is the general purpose
Purpose fund.
stabilization fund.
Right.
That's the only rainy day one.
Got
The
it.
town purposely set up these other special purpose stabilization funds for the special purposes.
So the general stabilization fund is in essence unrestricted, is an unrestricted stabilization fund?
Right,
Okay.
Yep.
So that has been taken out of free cash, so for investment purposes?
periodically, it's been funded by free cash, it's been funded by the tax rate over the years.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the committee? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? I see no one remotely or in the room. All right, with that, what's the pleasure of the committee? Can you speak into the mic, please?
I will make a motion.
To approve Article 13 as
Article-
presented?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. First by Ms. Richards, a second by Ms. Butler. Is there a discussion? Seeing Mr. Malaguti.
Yes, I would like to make an amendment to that motion if I could.
Well, what is your motion?
My motion is to amend the amount at 3 million to go into the facilities maintenance fund.
All right, we have an amendment proposed for the main motion to reduce the amount from 5 million to 3 million for Article 13. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion on the amendment to the main motion? Mr. Ramey?
Well, if at the end of all this, we're estimating that we're going to have 1.9 million left, adding 3 million to this is just guaranteeing that we're going to not approve other items. So,
I'm not sure, I don't understand your 3 million. If we're reducing from 5 to 2, you'll be
I
adding
thought he was
5 to
adding,
3.
I thought he was increasing.
All right, just to clarify, Mr. Malaguti, your motion is to reduce the amount of
My
Article
motion to
13,
reduce from 5 to 3.
is to reduce Article 13 from 5 million to 3 million. That answer your question, Mr. Ramey?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Ms. O'Connor?
Before we would vote on that, could we have some clarification on why the number 5 million was chosen to begin with? Because I think we're just throwing out large sums of money otherwise.
Ms. Barrett, would you care to answer that one?
When we look at our 10-year capital plan, we try to concentrate on around 10 to $12 million of our free cash to go to capital needs. And that is what we're recommending in Article 18 next week. With this significant amount of free cash, we didn't want it just to sit and not be used for something specific. I mean, we went through a really tough time with those fire station buildings, and it was a cry for help, so to speak. So we're experiencing that now with Memorial Hall, and I'm not saying that this is what it's going to be used for, but this would be an option if that is what the town chooses to do in the future. And having this money available for a building like that, or for, another fire station issue or a police station issue, having this money available, set aside, earning its own interest, we just thought was a prudent use of those funds.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, so we could have done there's multiple options, right? So one option is what's before you this evening, right? We think this is the most conservative option. This is actually saving $5 million. It's putting it into a special account that we use for a future use. Or we could have came to you and we could have, instead of spending $10 million worth of capital improvements, we could have said, we want to spend $15 million worth of capital. But we thought we'd be more conservative and not spend it all right away. Let's sit back, let's do that analysis, and then come back at a later time with a better analysis as to the best use of that $5 million.
All right, I think Ms. Richards, and then Ms. Tompkins, and then Mr. Vecchi.
Actually, my question is for Mr. Malaguti. Mr. Malaguti, what would be your plan for that remaining $2 million? What are your thoughts on that?
So my thoughts for the remaining $2 million is based on a couple of factors that we saw over the last couple meetings with the select board due to budget, not just for this year, but in the future. And if we're looking at the possibility of free cash downsizing, basically, in the next few years, that limits the amount that we'd be able to use for capital. And I'm afraid that if we don't have a little extra cushion, especially with barely any levy limit existing for now into at least the foreseeable future, that it would be on the taxpayers to borrow, which would increase the cost of the actual items that we would be looking at using for capital. And I frankly don't believe we should be wasting any extra pennies of the taxpayers' money by borrowing when we could be paying outright. So I'm adding to the cushion that could be used immediately without the worry of not getting a 2/3 vote at town meeting by just getting a simple majority vote at town meeting for using the free cash.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Ms. Tompkins?
Thank you. It sounds like we've been very thoughtful of what is make sense for us to be able to accomplish in capital projects and using that money in the next year. So to reserve this for the future uses, I think that is, some long-term and midterm planning that is important to the fiscal health of our town. So I would like to see it funded at the full $5 million.
Mr. Becky?
And my second to Everett's motion was with the intent that that money be rolled forward in free cash into the next year. We scrambled and we went through a 6-hour meeting almost trying to find $2.5 million. If we can add $2 million to the 1.9 that rolls forward into next year, and then get creative next year with the free cash, that, in my opinion, would offset some of that $2.5 million by using free cash, much like the purchase of the police cars. And to pontificate on that a little bit, government exists to perpetuate itself. And just because we have it doesn't mean we have to spend it. And the more we don't look at creative ways to move money forward to offset future budgets, the more that the burden is going to be on the taxpayer. And at the end of the day, I mean, so I don't have my number, but I think it's $325 million that we're talking about right here overall. And the people of the town have been very vocal in the burdens under the taxes that we have in place, whether it's property tax, whether it's excise tax, or it's old people. It's becoming unsustainable. In our earlier meeting today, I discovered an interesting fact that 42% of our town is people over 55 years of age. People over 55 years of age start living on a fixed budget. So anything we can do to reduce the burden on the taxpayers and not just spend money or move money because the government has it, but at some point we need to look at reducing our budget and not spending all this money and alleviating these people so that our older folks can afford to live. So that's why I seconded Everett's motion, was with the intent of rolling that forward so that we could use it to offset those that one-time purchase to do something creative like they did with police cars the other night, which I thought was a good idea. And if we're looking for $2.5 million and we roll 3.9 in the next year, to me, that makes a lot more sense.
So let me understand, are you wanting to have,
I don't think I can amend an amendment. I'm not sure of the, that's like 7 degrees of
well, I
Kevin Bacon,
think
but.
where I'm trying to go with this is, I believe what you're asking Mr. Maliki to do would be to modify his proposed amendment to specify that the $2 million reduction would go to free cash, but correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Barrett, that, or Mr. Brindisi, if we reduce that amount, it stays in free cash. Is that a fair statement?
I mean, you certainly could make that amendment that if the committee were to agree to the $2 million reduction, that it stays into free cash and it rolls forward. I mean, that would be a recommendation you could make to town meeting.
Okay, but if the amendment passes as proposed, the end result is that Mrs. Barrett is nodding her head up yet in a yes fashion, that $2 million will go into free cash by virtue of the process.
That's what I was speaking to.
Okay.
And I'm not great on Roger's rules of procedure.
I'll work through that. But I think my point is your intent is already built into the existing proposed amendment.
Correct. It's I don't know if I could suggest to Mr. Malaguti to revise his amendment so that with the intention of that rolls forward into free cash, or.
There's no need to, because it will go to free cash.
Okay, that's my eventual goal. Thank you.
My understanding. All right, lots of hands going up. Let's see, who was first, Friedman or Ramey? Mr. Ramey.
Does the general purpose stabilization fund generate the same interest as the other stabilization funds?
It varies. You can invest in the same things, but it doesn't earn the exact same interest.
Okay.
It varies.
And does it have the same 2/3 majority voting
Yes.
as the other stabilization funds?
So I want to be clear, okay? General purpose stabilization fund, to spend that at all requires a 2/3 vote, no matter what, okay? Special purpose stabilization funds require a majority vote, okay? As long as you're using it for the purpose that it was established. If you want to use it for something else, it requires a supermajority, 2/3 vote. Okay?
I mean, so, thank you. Personally, I support putting this into one of these funds because it's going to generate more money if it is in a stabilization fund versus sitting in free cash. But that's just my 2 cents. I just wanted to ask that to see if putting it in the general purpose one would give it more ability to be moved around, but that was not the case.
Mr. Fried.
So I'm ultimately going to abstain on the vote for both the amendment and the main motion, only because I haven't been able to wrap my head around yet exactly how all this works. I have no reason to doubt that it's a good idea, but I don't really fully understand. What I wanted to comment on was this idea, I'm a taxpayer like you all are, and I don't want my money wasted. But for most of you that are not old enough to remember a commercial around in the 1970s by the Fram oil filter company said, you can pay me now or you can pay me later. Okay, it was about doing an oil change or replacing your engine. The facilities here are going to have to be maintained. The roofs aren't going to, just because we decide to, whether this goes in a stabilization fund or stays in free cash or whatever, they're not going to make a roof last any longer. And it's not going to have the electrical systems any better, and we won't have to paint buildings and so forth. So with 32 buildings, I think you said, it's not hard to spend $15 million. Okay. Again, you mentioned Memorial Hall. I think I saw some numbers, big numbers like that just to fix up Memorial Hall. So I'm not too concerned about that. I am, I think it's a kind of a false hope to say to the taxpayers, well, look, if we don't put this $2 million into the stabilization fund, we're going to be able to help the taxpayers, because the costs aren't going to go away. The expenses of doing these repairs. Now, maybe they won't happen next year, but the only, to take money out of free cash and put it into the operating budget, which is the easiest way to help taxpayers, is going to mean we don't make those repairs and we don't look out for the future, and we'll have even worse problems 2 or 3 years down the road. That's my concern.
Thank you, Mr. Friedman. You stole my line. Ms. Reitman.
Where is the number 1.5 million for the remainder came from? Why is it? Is that the goal, about 2 million, to keep 2 million in the free cash?
Our financial policy suggests that we roll forward 10% of the annual free cash certification. So this year was $2.3 million. So in Ms. Barrett's recommendation, she's recommending that we hold back $2.3 million because we had a $23 million free cash certification, and that would roll forward into next year's free cash certification. So in theory, the only thing we could guarantee, assume that was agreed upon, that we know we will start our free cash certification with $2.3 million in that account.
So that will help in the future certification? Is that the?
It will add to the future certification, yes.
Mr. Malaguti.
Yeah, so basically part of what Mr. Friedman said about the costs and the borrowing is referenced by the Fram oil filter commercial, is sort of why I did the reduction in it. It's not because I'm looking at having the expenditures go for the taxpayers to go and be borrowed on. That's the main actual point why I'm reducing it, so that if we have any emergencies that happen, or if we can't get 2/3 majority, or if we can't do any of these other options, we have that cushion of free cash that we can use for those expenses, so we don't continue to put any more borrowing onto the taxpayers, which is also why one of the articles tonight is also referencing doing that too, to reduce the borrowing for the fire truck. So these are the sort of initiatives that I'm looking at while preserving money in there for future capital expenses, but also liquidating some of it so that we actually have it available for these emergencies, or the creativeness to use it for reducing borrowing expenses for items that either need immediate repair or within the next 3-year repair.
Thank you, Mr. Malaguti. Any other comments? Ms. Richards?
I tend to agree with Mr. Malaguti, although it's never best practice to rely on free cash to balance our operating budget. But considering, I just went through 2 subcommittees, and with their reductions in their budget as requested, they're kind of looking at a very slim budget to begin with. So they may be going into next year's budget looking for some assistance. So I am in support of this amendment. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Brindisi, do you happen to know approximately how many gross square feet the town has that you're maintaining? Or perhaps the replacement value? And if you don't, that's okay. I'm springing this on cold turkey.
I don't know the square footage. Do we know the replacement value? We don't have it with us. We could get you the replacement value. It would be on our insurance, but we don't have
Okay, well, I know that Lynn's looking scared at this moment, but where I'm going with this is in some 40 years of facilities management. First of all, buildings are the gift to keep on taking. And you don't save money by not changing your oil. So this is a false savings, in my opinion, my professional opinion, even though I'm now retired. But there are also some metrics out there. So in higher ed facilities, the goal was always to target 3% of the replacement value, but you can never afford that. So you were felt lucky if you got 1.5% of the replacement value. So I don't expect it for tonight, but that would be one measure of it. And then the other thing is, depending upon the particular age of the renovation age of your buildings, you would learn to budget so many square foot so many dollars per square foot for capital budgeting for either current or future projects to be done, and you would put that in a reserve like this. So, and that has generally worked, and the places it hasn't worked is when people don't set aside these reserves. So this reduction, I've always said this is a must-do. We can certainly argue about the 5 or the 3, and I'm not going to fall on the sword about that, but it's just really important to keep doing this because at some point, and the other thing that happens with construction costs this day and age is the escalation that is currently happening and certainly not helped by tariffs. So that's my spiel. I won't be voting on it unless I need to break a tie, but I believe the amendment, the motion that we're voting on right now is to amend the dollar amount for Article 13 from 5 million to 3 million. And I'm going to call the vote now. So Ms. Butler?
No.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Friedman?
Abstain.
Mr. Jacinto?
No.
Ms. Keating?
No.
Mr. Malaguti?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
No.
Mr. Ramey?
No.
Ms. Reitman?
No.
Ms. Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
No.
Mr. Trudell?
Abstain.
Mr. Becky?
Yes.
We'll have the vote here in a moment. So we have 4 yeses, we have 7 noes, and 2 abstentions. The motion to amend Article 13 does not carry.
572.
That would imply that we have 14 people besides me. Oh, that's right, Mr. Cadell showed up, my bad, my bad. 572. All right, we'll move on to the main motion, which is to approve Article 13, Facility Stabilization Fund as presented.
I'll make that motion.
No, it's already on the table. Thank you. I just was taking a breath. And reaching for my roster. Ms. Butler. All right. Mr. Dunn.
Yes.
Mr. Friedman.
Abstain.
Mr. Jacinto.
Yes.
Ms. Keating.
Yes.
Mr. Malaguti.
No,
Was that a no, Mr. Malaguti? I couldn't quite hear you.
yes, it was a no.
Okay, so Mr. Malaguti votes no. Ms. O'Connor.
Yes.
Mr. Ramey.
Yes.
Ms. Reitman. Ms. Richards.
Yes.
Mr. Snyder.
No.
Ms. Tompkins.
Yes.
Mr. Trudell.
Abstain.
Abstain. Mr. Vecchi.
No.
All right, stand by. So the vote is, we believe, 9 yes, 3 no, and 2 abstentions. Article 13 carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Brindisi and Ms. Barrett. All right, it's on now to Article 14, Nuclear Stabilization Fund, and I think this is to ask the town to add $500,000 into the Nuclear Stabilization Fund based upon my review of the Select Board's meeting last night, this morning.
Yes,
Good morning, Mr. Canning.
good morning. It's good
Or
to be
good
back.
afternoon.
So yes, this is Article 14, the Nuclear Mitigation Stabilization Fund. So this is a fund that was created at Springtown meeting in 2013. At the creation of the fund, the nuclear power plant, Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station, was still operating. It continued to operate for some 6 additional years. It had been operating since 1972. At the time of its creation, this fund was created primarily for tax mitigation for when the plant ceased operations. There was times during the operation of the plant, we had a pilot agreement with them where they made up a significant portion of the town's budget. They were the largest taxpayer for many years. The proportion of the budget that they paid went down over time, not because of their own value reducing or their own production reducing, but rather because of the growth of the town around it. When the town entered into the agreement to construct this plant, the town was much smaller, and it grew partially because of the artificial deflation, in my opinion, of the residential tax rate during the operation of this plant and the failure of predecessors in my role to invest that properly in infrastructure and things that would continue to serve us well in the future, and instead just spending the money as it came in ways that are now being paid for by our contemporaries, including me. Anyways, that brings us to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B. Despite the fact that it was created primarily for the tax mitigation purposes in 2013, under Massachusetts General Law, with any stabilization fund, at the time of creating any stabilization fund, the city, town, or district shall specify and at any time later time may alter the purpose of the fund, which may be for any lawful purpose. So there was conversations amongst this committee last year about that this money could only be used for a specific purpose and should only be used for a specific purpose. It can be used for any lawful purpose, and we have a purpose in mind for that particular fund, which we will get to. But if that purpose were to evaporate, to use a term that's apropos, then we could, at a later time, change it, and we could use it for another lawful purpose that we use any stabilization fund for, such as capital needs, facilities maintenance even, things of that nature, reducing the tax levy at that time, But those are the permissible uses of a stabilization fund. You create it for a specific purpose. You can change that purpose at any time. You can change it when you remove money from the fund, if you chose to do so. The purpose we would like to use and have been advocating for a number of years would be to use the money in this fund for the purchase of some or all of the 1,530.35 acres that are under the possession and control of Holtec Decommissioning International, the current operator and decommissioning agency, taking charge of the decommissioning of what was the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station. The parcel rather is the single largest undeveloped parcel in the community. This is the area over here on the left where the plant was. That is slowly being reduced brick by brick, item by item. When it is fully deconstructed, the decommissioning process of the facility will be complete. But over here, there are still some dry cast storage facilities where old spent nuclear fuel is kept. There is currently not a final destination for that. So as of right now, those will remain there for the foreseeable and, based on the nature of radioactive decay, unforeseeable future, since it will take thousands of years for it to become inert. That is something we are working on and through other channels. But when this plant is gone and all that remains is there, Holtec can apply for what is called partial site release. So right now, they are still under an NRC license for much of this property, because originally when Holtec didn't operate it at first, Boston Edison did, then Entergy. But when the plant first operated, they were not going to build just one reactor, they were going to build three. They were going to build 3 reactors that were 1968 technology. And part of the reason that the parcel is so large is it was believed at that time that you needed a very large geographical setback of land in order to have a nuclear power plant. That turned out to not be accurate. Whether or not it's desirable or not is a different story, but in terms of scientific need and risk need, it's not accurate. But their license was issued with the intention of it being 3 times as big in terms of the actual plant. So much of the actual usable and developable land, which is up Powerhouse Road here, is actually in their license. And until they've decommissioned the plant that they did build, this area is functionally locked down under that NRC license. Their current projection for partial site release, when that area would be available for sale, would be 2035. So we're 9 years away from that date. We have completed as a community, we are in the process of putting the finishing touches on what was the master plan, is now the comprehensive plan that some people are very, very big fans of. And we also completed a separate master plan just for the Holtec parcel because of the unique characteristics of it, being the single largest undeveloped parcel in the community, the highest geographic point on the eastern seaboard within a mile of the ocean between a point in Maine and a point in Georgia. There's some unique characteristics to there, but also there are some unique characteristics that the town, we think, should be in control of, because the concern is that Powerhouse Road is an area that is buildable. And if a private developer were to buy it, the concern would be that they would buy it for what all private developers seem to be buying land for in the Plymouth community right now, which is residential units, residential housing, apartments, condominiums, things of that nature. And while our residents are precious, and I love all of my constituents, I feel that I already have enough of them, and I don't want this area to be developed for the use of additional residential housing in the community, because that would be a recurring expense. The reason that the budget is so high is because of the services that are delivered to residents, because more people require more services. Not everybody consumes every service that the town provides, but someone depends on all the services that the town provides. The more people you have, the more service you have to provide. The more service you have to provide, the more expensive it is. And that is a recurring expense to people that live in that house forever, as opposed to, say, a one-time expense like having to fix up a building or buying a piece of land. So we think that in order to control the land, you'd have to own the land. And the best way to secure the future of this community would be to own as much of this land as possible when it comes up for sale. There is the possibility that when this land comes up for sale, we could qualify for grants for some or all of it. We could use other funding sources for some or all of it. And if that's possible, then great. However, often those things come with strings. We want the community to be in a position to make a decision for what the community wants to see happen with this parcel. So the more we can pay in cash that doesn't have any strings attached, we think the better. However, let's say we were to get a grant to cover all of it, just for the sake of argument. It is at that point that we could, as I alluded to earlier, use the money that we're suggesting to put away into this fund for some other purpose, because the town has plenty of needs for money, always will have plenty of needs for money, but we feel that this is important. Powerhouse Road can be developed, and then there's an area over here that can be developed for residential. Much of the interior parcel here is unbuildable due to its grade, at least with current construction technology. However, as you may have heard over the summer with just one former golf course, or soon-to-be former golf course, you can pack hundreds of units into a relatively small portion or parcel of land if you're really determined to do so. And that is the fear, that we would have to deliver hundreds of units worth of services. For instance, right now, the Oasis behind Home Depot is the single largest source of calls for service from the police department. So it's a high-density 40B residential housing. It's right near the police department, which is, I guess, convenient. But there is still a significant drain from that type of residential, and that's just for police services. The biggest single cost that most residents consume is having a child in schools. Last year, a child in the school cost about $25,000 per child. So if you have a family with 2 or 3 kids, $50,000 to $75,000 in 2025 dollars, let alone 2026 dollars. It just keeps increasing. So we feel that it is prudent to remove this from an out-of-town developer with big pockets building a residential development that's good for them and their quarterly reports, but bad for Plymouth and its annual budget. So we have negotiated a pilot agreement with Holtec. We did that in 2023. Once the plant stopped operating, we had to pass special legislation to continue to have a pilot. But we did that to extend a right of first refusal on that parcel. So if some or all of that is sold, we have a right of first refusal on it during an 8-year period. We have access to the land for an annual appraisal purpose for that period of 8 years. We also have a $3 million account credit to be used for some or all of the land purchases that come online during that time. We don't have to use the credit. We can use it at one time and use part of it at one point, save the rest for another, use all of it at first, use none of it at first. We can make our choices as it goes along. And we also have made a commitment to engage with Holtec in a master planning process that has since been completed for the future of that. The pilot does not guarantee that the land will be sold during the 8 years, and in fact, it is unlikely that much of it would be sold, as I said earlier, based on their NRC license. However, this protects the town from having to act too quickly. We have a 9-month period to react to a proposed sale rather than the significantly reduced time we would have had without the extended right of first refusal. So it does give us significant flexibility in terms of adjusting to some or all of it coming online for sale if it does during the 8-year period. So the proposal is to place $500,000 into the Nuclear Mitigation Stabilization Fund. We have been doing that gradually. Town meeting has been doing that gradually over the last several years. The current balance prior to this transfer is $11 million rather. With the $500,000, that would bring it to $11.5 million. That's pretty easy math. But last year, when I was before town meeting advocating for this same directive to be carried out, which it was, luckily, the balance going into April town meeting was $9.9 million. Spring annual town meeting 2025 contributed $500,000 into the fund. bringing the fund at that time up to $10.4 million. We have not put any more money into that fund since then, but the fund has grown with interest up to $11 million during that time. So as you can see, in that time, we've made roughly $600,000 just in interest on the fund while it's waiting for the land to come online. So investing this free cash, from where it stands right now, free cash does not accrue meaningful interest. If we're able to put it in this fund, it does accrue meaningful interest. And it's targeted for a specific purpose that many of us believe, if this parcel were to fall into the wrong hands, could pose an existential threat to the future fiscal viability of Plymouth due to the drain of services that would happen there, being the single biggest undeveloped parcel. At the time we negotiated the pilot in 2023, we estimated that if the entire parcel were to come online in 2023 dollars, it would be between $35 and $50 million to purchase it. Obviously, since 2023, the cost of real estate has continued to go up, but that was the estimate at that time. So we are advocating and we are asking that this $500,000 be taken from free cash, put into this fund to accrue meaningful interest, so that it is available to use when the Holtec parcel comes on the market for purchase, so that a private likely out-of-town developer, based on the cost, doesn't buy it and build something on it that we don't want. We think it would significantly change the character of the community, particularly in that area. If it were to be developed in a way of high-density housing, which is the trend that developers are doing recently in the community, as you may have seen, and we think this is an important component that we have been working on for a number of years. The reasons that Plymouth struggles is because of a lack of medium and long-term planning. Plymouth has a tendency to focus on the problem at hand and never the problem that's coming down the pike, even something that they know is coming down the pike. Historically, we have gone from fire to fire, putting them out, but not preventing fires from starting in the first place. This is an effort to try and stop a significant fire from starting in the first place and to get control of our destiny by controlling the land rather than the land controlling us. So that's what we're seeking to do. I'm available for questions.
Mr. Friedman.
So appreciate the explanation. A couple things. Number one, so you said a few times this is the largest developable plot in town, but the really developable area is the two areas that you suggested to us, right?
Yes, without significant, it would not be largely economically viable due to the grade to develop much of the other areas. There's some small parts, but not significant parts.
And would property like this be applicable to take by eminent domain?
So you could, but you have to pay fair market value for that.
I understand.
And because we have the expanded right of first refusal, we don't really need to do that at this point. We also, right now, I mean, as has been talked about directly and indirectly over the last couple of weeks, we really don't have the money to take it by eminent domain right now if we wanted to. We're trying to invest in the future so that if and when some or all of it comes online, we do. But yeah, we could, in theory, if we had the money to pay fair market value.
So one other thought is there anything preventing the town from rezoning that area to prevent high-density development, if we think that's the real danger?
There is. So we could rezone it, but there's a state statute called 40B that ignores local zoning.
Right.
So you could make it that you can't do anything but build houses for ducklings there. And they could just build a 40B on it because it ignores local zoning preferences. And the state pretty much allows them to do that with almost no meaningful restrictions.
That would be true of conservation land?
So we can't zone into conservation land.
can't.
You need to buy it and you need to pass a restriction onto a third party holder as well. There has been conversations for some of the high significant grade areas that aren't economically viable to develop for any purpose. Potentially like partnering with somebody like Wylands Trust or something like that to buy some, or CPC to buy some of that, and, or to hold the conservation restriction depending. But it's not even on the market yet, so that's kind of theoretical. But yeah, you can't apply a conservation restriction through the zoning bylaw. You can only do that through ownership and then giving that restriction to a third entity.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Malaguti and then Mr. Snyder.
Yes, so I understand the premise of doing this, and I applaud the town for doing this. But I also think that some of the history that was just stated about that the fund can be used in whichever way they think, that's based upon what the current board would be. And if a new board happens, they can alter what they want the fund to go to. But the actual sale of that article to town meeting was to be used for the purposes of helping to control the taxes when Entergy was finished with the community. And I would stick with that since I was on town meeting when that was voted, and I voted it for that purpose. And I think that majority of the taxpayers in Plymouth still reign that purpose as well too, even though that it can be changed. So while we would love to get the property, we have no guarantee on it. And we do have a financing portion guaranteed through the next roughly 8 years from the existing pilot with them. So I, in my opinion, would not support putting 500,000 into that this year because of fiscal constraints and further reducing whatever limited free cash we have if an emergency does happen or if we need to use it for other supplemental one-time funds for the budget. So that is my opinion on that, and I just wanted to state that for the record.
So if I could respond. So the select board does not control the fund. Town meeting controls the purse strings. The select board could ask town meeting to use it for a particular purpose that a future select board wants. But town meeting and only town meeting can authorize an expenditure from the fund. Could change that expenditure from the fund at that time, or could just say no to that expenditure at that time. So the select board does not control the fund.
Thank you. Mr. Snyder?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been disturbed about this since I talked about it last year as well. I mean, this was put together with a great noble cause of, the Pilgrim was shutting down and taxes were going to go up because they pay a lot of the money. So this was set up as a mitigation tool for the taxpayers of our town. And now it's metamorphosed into a buying thing for real estate. And that just rubs me the wrong way. And it did last year, it still does now. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not for putting this $500,000 in. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Snyder. Anyone else here? Okay, Ms. O'Connor.
Realistically, you had mentioned something about licenses. I know we don't have any definite timelines, but when do we think there's even a possibility that this is going to be realistically available for purchase?
I can answer that. So in addition to being on the select board, I also have the distinct privilege of being the chair of the Nuclear Decommissioning Citizens Advisory Panel. So Holtec's current decommissioning timeframe is for 2035, but that assumes that they're able to discharge the water into the bay, which is something that is under litigation at the state level at the moment. They have responded that if they are unable to do that, which is something that the state is trying to prevent and that we've joined to try and also prevent, that would extend the time frame that they could get partial site release. And that partial site release, again, would be for like this area here, where the original 3 reactors were planned, only 1 reactor was built. It doesn't, they could sell some or all of the parcel outside of that license at any point that they wanted to. But generally, the reason that they've slowed their role in terms of decommissioning from what was originally projected was because when the plant was operating, there was payments made into a decommissioning trust fund. That trust fund was tied itself to the stock market. The plant started the decommissioning process in 2019, and sadly, in 2020, the stock market went all topsy-turvy for reasons we all know about. And so that money in that fund is the only money that they have to both pay for the decommissioning of the plant and, at the end of it, in a perfect world, walk away with some money for themselves. So they are trying to extend the time frame to increase the value of and the performance of that trust fund in the stock market while still making some progress along the way. And the other thing that they're doing is waiting, I think, based on this, they're waiting for the land to also increase in value at that time because they have to be there anyways. Land goes up in value over time through ups and downs individually, but it trends upwards over time. So the only two ways that they have to make money decommissioning this plant is by keeping as much of that money from the decommissioning plant that they can while still safely decommissioning the plant and selling this land. So that's why they will sell. They don't need it. They don't need, even if they were to build, as some people theorize, that they want to build a new nuclear power plant there, which they can't currently. There's a requirement that a statewide referendum happen before a new nuclear power plant opens anywhere in the Commonwealth. And Holtec themselves has said that while that referendum requirement exists, that they believe that new nuclear power in the Commonwealth is a non-starter. But even if they were to do that, as I said earlier, you don't need the setback anymore that they thought they did back in the 60s and 70s. So they don't need to be paying taxes on a bunch of wooded area that can't be developed. So some of it will certainly come online. We are hopeful in another realm that the discharge into the bay doesn't happen, and that would extend the sale of the part that is covered by the license by at least a few years. But that just gives more time for the money we're able to put away in the fund while we have it to grow in value in the stock market. There is, as we approach the fiscal cliff that the town is going towards, which we are not at yet, but we are approaching, there is likely in the future we will not be able to put money into this fund. But the position we have is while we can, we should, because as you just see in the last year, it grew $600,000. So if we have to wait another 9 years to get to 2035, then it could grow all that money in that time. And then if it's a few more years beyond that, even if we don't put any more money in, it's grown into a nice little nest egg for a down payment on this or a payment of what comes online, or if money from heaven comes to pay for it, for another use. The town will always have a use for money to meet the needs of our citizens. So that's the thinking there, but that's sort of the projected time frame.
Okay. And so you think it's prudent this year to go against what I'm assuming is the advice, the financial advice, to keep the carryover?
Yes, I do. I can explain why. It's because when it's in the free cash fund, it gains very little interest because it needs to be available, it needs to be liquid. If it's in this fund, it gains significant interest. And we're taking only out of what we would have kept. So it's like imagine if you had $2.3 million in your checking account and you could instead put it in an index fund for the next 9 years. You could keep it in your checking account. That wouldn't be, the financial advisor wouldn't recommend that you do that, most of them, unless you really need liquidity. But by putting it in an investment heavy account, you're able to make money on your money and have your money working for you. So yes, I don't think it would be prudent to put all $2.3 million in, but I think it is prudent to keep on the course that we've been on while we can stay on it. And if next year our free cash is in a different situation, then we can take the brakes off, but we will have a year of interest on this money. Whereas if we kept that money and then said, oh, actually, last year we could have put 500,000 in, it's too late. Because unfortunately, one capital request we cannot make is for a DeLorean with a flux capacitor.
Okay. I'm just going to say I agree with the two previous comments. It feels very frustrating that this fund, while we hear you and we understand, and I don't think anyone here is against acquiring this property. It feels really frustrating that there seems to be a very narrowed, singular purpose for this fund now. And I think it feels like we're very restrained and that we can never get anywhere past this one purpose. So that's my comment on this.
All right, thank you, Ms. O'Connor. Mr. Malaguti, and then Mr. Becky, and then Mr. Friedman. Mr. Ramey, but Mr. Malaguti, you're up.
Maybe.
I'll pass until the other members have gotten a chance to speak.
All right, thank you. Let's see, Mr. Becky?
Mr. Canty, so it's fair to say that nobody from Holtec has actually told us what their exact plans are aside from decommissioning this as far as selling the property or any of that, correct?
They have not explicitly told us that they plan to sell it on a date certain.
All right, so most of this is just an educated guess, conjecture, correct?
I wouldn't say that. I would say that they're in the decommissioning business and that they make money off the assets they acquire in the purchase of the land and the assets on that land, including the trust fund and the physical assets being the land itself and the few things they were able to sell from the nuclear power plant. That is their business model. That is what they have done in other jurisdictions that they have decommissioned nuclear power plants in. So it is based on the way that Holtec Decommissioning International decommissions nuclear power plants.
So it's conjecture based on past practice.
I wouldn't say that that's conjecture. If you have a company that builds automobiles, I don't think it's conjecture to say that next year they're going to build more of them. This is a company that decommissions nuclear power plants in a certain way, and I think they're going to continue with their business model here as they have elsewhere.
Okay, so, and while small modular reactors are a very hypothetical concept, but they have been talked about somewhat extensively in conjecture. If that were to present itself, then that would turn this all on its head, correct?
No, not necessarily. I mean, right now, the one company that owns the license thinks it's a non-starter. If that were to change, then there'd be an analysis at that point of what land is going to be used for that purpose. And whether that happens after a vote from the referendum, or if the legislature repeals the requirement of the referendum, there would still be other parts of the land that they would not require, that they would sell based on their business model. So it may reduce the footprint of the land that they sell, but as I stated earlier, based on the lack of needing a setback like they did in prior years, they would not need to maintain and upkeep and pay taxes on the entirety of the parcel that they currently own.
But conceivably, that would place the town in a very different bargaining position, correct?
I don't see so. I mean, if they're going to be using it in that situation that you're describing, where they're putting some of it into an economic use of building a new reactor, and then they're looking to discharge the other, that could lower the price. It could raise the price. It depends on the price of land and the needs of the company at that time. I would say that would be impossible to determine.
So it all depends.
As everything in life, yes.
So conceivably, this whole idea of purchasing and everything like that could take a drastic turn at some point. We just have no way of knowing because we don't have a crystal ball, right?
We do not have a crystal ball, that's true. What we do have is experience in life and in practice with other entities in the community. And we know that they're not going to want to pay taxes on land that they have no economic value for. And we do know that there are other uses for this land for residential development that is very sought after in the community by private residential developers who would be willing to pay a nuclear power plant that doesn't need the land to build a house on it, or a series of houses on it, or a high-density 40B project on it. So we know those things. We do not know the specific acreage that would be sold or the specific time frame that it would be sold. But we also do know that in the event that they didn't want to sell any of the land for some reason, that at any point we could choose to use the money in the fund for any other lawful purpose. So the money isn't going away. It's being invested with a specific plan in mind and being put away for a plan to execute that and mitigate the rise in taxes in the future. But it doesn't lock us into that forever. We could make an adjustment if in 2045 they still haven't sold the land. They've said they're not going to sell the land. And then the community could say, all right, well, we put that money away for that purpose, but that purpose is, as far as we know, never coming to fruition. Let's use it for free cash for a few years, or let's use it to build the next elementary school that we're going to need at that point, or to pay off our pension liability or something other, any other lawful purpose that the town could use. Having it in a stabilization fund in the meantime also helps lower our borrowing cost for projects that we do undertake. So it does, investing it in this fund also has a knock-on effect of lowering costs overall that the town incurs while we are waiting for this to settle out.
So while we are looking at 2035, 2045, et cetera, we are still rapidly approaching that cliff that we talked about, that financial cliff that the town sees coming at it.
We anticipate that the town's finances over the next year or two will continue to tighten, but we are not at that cliff yet.
So wouldn't you agree that at any chance that this board has to try to mitigate that effect of that upcoming cliff, we should do?
I would say that this is the best way to help mitigate that, because it is residents that are driving up your services, the cost of services, and that the cost of the budget is going up because the population is going up. We're adding, Mr. Vecchi, 750 to 1,000 people a year, every year, of all ages, that need all different kinds of services, that need to be delivered over the single largest geographical town in Massachusetts, the largest town east of the Mississippi. And that those costs, that the costs of people coming into this community and requiring those services and not wanting to lose those services that they're depending on, that is what is driving up the cost of the budget. And that by smartly investing in avoiding the single largest undeveloped parcel from going into private hands to someone's profit motive to develop a residential development like the one happening near my house, a 40B in North Plymouth, that they're saying, the developers are saying, is a great asset to the community, something that Plymouth badly needs. And I agree we need affordable housing, but we don't need a 40B in North Plymouth. We didn't need a 40B down at Atlantic Country Club like somebody wanted to do over the summer. Those are not the kind of affordable housing solutions that the community needs. That's not that dense residential development is not what Plymouth wants, not what it needs, and not what we should be striving for. What we should instead be striving to do is what my predecessors have not done, which is trying to invest in the future and trying to take the town's destiny back and put it in the hands of the town rather than leaving it as we have for generation upon generation of private entities who have charted our path for us, and then we've had to adjust. And those adjustments take the form of our annual budget and its continuous increases because of a lack of control of where people are going and the sprawl that we're seeing, yet we must deliver services wherever they go. So this is a good way to get control of our finances.
I'm very, very aware of the level of services and the size of our town. As you're well aware, I used to deliver those services up until about 2 years ago. But again, putting money aside and long-term planning seems to be a great idea. As we rapidly approach this financial cliff, much like Everett's motion in the past one, I personally am going to vote against this. I think we should certify more money in a free cash for next year to offset next year's budget. I just don't see putting the pedal to the metal on this cliff that we're actually approaching. That's the end of my question.
All right, thank you. So, let's see, Mr. Friedman, do you have questions for
Yeah, so,
Mr. Canty, and save discussion until we discuss the motion, please?
so I guess my question would be, if, as Mr. Malaguti pointed out before, and I think others have pointed out, this was established to mitigate impacts on the taxpayer when the nuclear power plant shut down. And if I understand your presentation correctly, that's still what this is, the intention is to use this money for. Town meeting will ultimately decide, but,
Yes.
you know, and your contention is that by taking this developable land out of the town's inventory and the services that go along with that, that's, in your opinion, the best way to do that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, every $1 million you would reduce from the tax levy this year would save the average taxpayer $32.11 a year, which isn't nothing, but that's on a quarterly basis, you're talking like $8 and some change. And then it's gone, one-time expense, and then it's gone. And next year, because you didn't reduce your actual operating budget, you just made it look smaller with an artificial injection of a one-time fund, then it's going to bounce right back up. And those services are still going to be required. If you buy the land and stop the people from moving in the first place, then you don't have to pay for that kid to go from K through 12 in our system. You don't have to pay for the people to call the police or fire department or need their roads plowed, which is a recurring annual expense every year in perpetuity. I mean, there are streets that have had services delivered to them for 400 years.
No, I got that.
Right.
But we're not, if we vote to put $500,000 in this fund, an additional $500,000, we're not voting in any way to support, whether it's to buy the land.
Correct.
Or whether it's to decommission the plant, or whether it's to put a giant football stadium there.
Right.
All we're saying is we're going to put additional money in this stabilization fund that it appears that most people still believe is to mitigate future impacts to the taxpayer.
Correct.
Okay.
And it would gain interest while it's there and lower our borrowing costs.
All right, Mr. Ramey, any new questions you wish to ask?
Yeah, so I'm just a little concerned with property values going up and the amount of money that's in it right now. Has anyone sort of projected out how much we would need to be putting in it with interest grown to like eventually hit 35 to 50 million? And granted, that's in 2023 dollars. So in 2035 to 2040, you know, is this even enough to do what the plan is?
So it's certainly enough to have a down payment if it were all to come online at one time. And as the interest continues to accrue, it will obviously continue to grow. And then we can supplement. We don't know, importantly, we don't know that all 1,530.35 acres are going to come online at once. And part of the master planning process was identifying uses for the individual portions of it, so that if a portion of it comes online that isn't on the market, that is not buildable for residential, we wouldn't necessarily need to prioritize purchasing that. Instead, we could save the money for that Powerhouse Road and the near Rocky Hill Road parts of it. So that was part of the strategic thinking, so that we can make best use of the money that we have while we have it. But if it did all come online at once, at a minimum, we could have a good down payment for it, particularly with the $3 million account credit that we have for the next, we had an 8-year pilot starting in 2023, so we have that till 2031.
Has anyone ever made like a estimate investment chart?
Yeah,
every
the part of
year?
the whole, the Pilgrim 1600 talks about the potential costs of it in current, well, 2025 dollars. We're now in 2026. And obviously, if you track that with like the consumer price index and real estate costs, you can roughly estimate. Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, as a just point of information, at 7% a year, money doubles every 10 years. So for the sake of the argument, if we're talking about $11 million now, if we did not just invested that at 7%, it's $11 million, would be $22 million in 10 years. Now, we might put more money in or whatever, but based on what he's saying there now, that 35 to 50 million, I can't speculate on what that would be, but just to answer your question, that's where that's how much money we'd have, roughly.
Which was sort of in line with my next question. Have we put money in this every year since 2013?
Not every year. Every year for the last several years. And we put less money in it at first because there wasn't a perfect, we should have had this account when the plant opened. It would have been easier to put money away over a 40-year period than the last 6 years. But when it opened, when this account opened in 2013, we didn't know it was going to be closing in 2019. So there was some money put at first, and then when there were some other needs, it was less prioritized, and then we started putting more money in it. But for the last few years, we've put $500,000 in it every year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Malaguti, do you have a question, or is it something that should be properly said in discussion?
It's sort of a question comment because I just wanted a little bit of clarity. So thank you, Kevin, for bringing it up a little bit earlier about the actual plant itself and future proposals. While I know you stated that as of right now, based upon Mass law and a referendum, that nuclear would be non-existent in the community or throughout the entire state. But with the licensing, with the actual licensing expiring roughly in 10 years, which is roughly 2 to 2.5 administrations, that can change, and voter sentiment, especially as we've seen over the last year with energy prices, that there's a warming up again of nuclear, especially with pricing, but also the the establishment of SMRs that have at least a few test models and one actual one have gone online for this. Do you think that they are still eyeing that in the future, since you need a roughly couple-year model of testing an actual size facility to see if the operational costs are effective?
So investing, they currently don't view it as a worthwhile use of their time to invest in nuclear Holtec, to invest in nuclear technology in Massachusetts because of the statewide referendum that they are doubtful would pass. It costs billions of dollars to build a nuclear power plant, and there's a lot of sweat equity and time put into the design phase, the permitting phase. They have to go through the NRC and modify their permit. So there's a bunch of administrative and engineering and technical things that they would have to do. And because there's no guarantee that at the end of it that would pay off for them in Massachusetts, they currently don't view that as viable. However, they are pursuing that in at least one other jurisdiction. So I think what would have to happen is that the referendum requirement would need to be repealed on Beacon Hill, which is something that the state legislature could do, but I am not aware of any current efforts to do that. As of right now, with that referendum requirement, Holtec does not view it as a good use of their time to invest in that possibility. So I think that answers your question. I think it would require outside forces to change the political landscape in the community. I don't think they would depend on voters to, based on my conversations with them in their own statements, that they would depend on voter sentiment to support their investment of time and money and resources.
No, and I see that as well too. I only questioned it because even though that they may not directly, that they could always team up with another company to do that, or even have that other company buy the land from them to put an SMR. And that's why I only asked that for better clarification.
Yeah, they'd need to transfer their license to the new holder, which also has some costs. But yeah, if they found another company that was willing to take the risk, with the referendum requirement, then in theory, that could happen.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the public? All right, seeing and hearing none. What we are voting on tonight is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds $500,000 to the Nuclear Stabilization Fund. That was the amount approved at the Select Board last night. As authorized by the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section or Paragraph 5B, as amended, or take any other action relative thereto. Is there a motion? Ms. Butler moves the article. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Friedman seconds. Discussion. Ms. Tompkins.
Thank you. So I plan to live in Plymouth for the next 60 years, so you can just guess my age. Long-term planning is important to me because the decisions we make now will impact the future of our community. Very easy example is us welcoming the power plant in 1972, and we're still being impacted by that decision and how the town chose to use the revenue generated for us. We have the free cash now. This money will be invested and it'll grow. And as time moves forward, the situation about the Holtec land, as it changes, town meeting still has the ability to determine what the use of these funds are. If we can prevent the type of development which has a long-term and forever burden on town services, I really think we should save now for future uses. However, that may play out as things change. So I just ask my colleagues to think about short-term benefits versus the long-term impact of not investing for this investment in the future. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else wish to comment? Mr. Malaguti.
Yes. While long-term planning is always the forefront of better fiscal management and policies, we're not divesting from this. We're just putting a pause on this at the moment due to financial constraints, not just the town is facing, but the actual citizens of our town are facing. I think while it's prudent to keep adding to this fund, it's also prudent to also see the actual immediate short-term needs as well too that are needed by the actual government and the residents itself. And I think it's prudent that we deny this request at this time due to those financial constraints. In the future, we can always add to them or with additional funds if we ever get the passage of what we did before, I think it was last year, for the sale of homes into a land bank and stuff like that. Those would be other financial tools that we can use. And it's not putting this and stopping us entirely. But I think at this time, we need to take a pause and redirect where the community actually needs the funding, not just for now, but into the future. And I believe that this is a prudent way to do financial policy as well too, is that not to just completely blindly put into funds, but see where the immediate needs are at this time. And I think that Mr. Brindisi did that very well, along with Ms. Barrett, when they did the financial planning and didn't decide to put any money into it for this fiscal year because of those constraints that they were having on both sides of the budget. So I will be voting no to adding these funds into this, and I hope that the rest of the committee does as well. Thank you.
Mr. Friedman.
So I do have a question and then a comment.
Please get near the mic. Thank you.
Sorry? I do have a question and then a comment. So the question is.
We don't generally allow questions at this point.
Oh, okay, a clarification.
Okay.
If we put money into this fund, we talked about a town meeting has the ability to take it out for pretty much any purpose, if I understood it correctly. Is that a majority vote or a 2/3 vote?
Yeah, 2/3.
2/3 vote to get out of this fund. Okay.
If it's for a different purpose than was intended.
Okay, so if it was, if the purpose is tax mitigation, is that the purpose of this fund?
Yeah, I would say that would be a simple majority.
So that'd be a simple majority?
Right.
Okay, so if that being the case, I don't see, everyone else that's talked has concerns about this. What I heard at least was that we'd be taking funds away from the possibility of providing tax mitigation in the short term because we're investing in the long term. And if I understand what we just discussed, I don't think that is really the alternative. I don't think we're giving up a short-term possibility because we're investing for the long term. So I'd be inclined to favor to be in favor of this.
All right. Other comments? Mr. Ramey?
Yeah, at first I was against this, but I'm in favor of it now because it's become kind of clear to me that these are just kind of higher interest savings accounts to put it separately, and we're not really spending money on anything. It's still accessible, and it just makes financial sense to put it in something that's going to gain more interest. So, and you know, we still have $1.9 million in free cash if we approve the rest of this stuff. So, I don't know. I've kind of flipped on this personally. That's it.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Ms. Richards?
Excuse me. So in the past, I've been on both sides of this because it is a mitigation fund to mitigate the taxes that we are losing due to the decommissioning of the nuclear power plant. After hearing Mr. Friedman's very refreshing point of view, even putting the $500,000 into this account, we can still use it for tax mitigation, but we can also use it to purchase the property, should we need to. So for either of those purposes, we are putting the money into a savings account. We are making money, as Mr. Ramey pointed out. So I have also flipped from the beginning of this discussion. I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Mr. Jacinto?
I will join the others with my back and forth. I think looking at trying to put the money aside does make sense. While personally, I don't think that the land will come up for sale, having it still available with a majority vote for tax mitigation is fine. And in this fund, it will generate more interest with a higher interest account than it would be just sitting in free cash. So for that, I'm going to be also a yes.
Anyone else? Mr. Trudell, are you raising your hand to speak? Please unmute.
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
It seems to me we can always find a reason not to put money aside. But if we do that, it would just get consumed in the rush. Putting this money where we know where it is and which the town then can take action seems to me to continue is the best prudent action that we can take.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I'd like to say a couple of words. I tend to categorize things like this in the article we just voted on as must do, should do, nice to do, don't do. And for years I've said this was a nice to do. I think the arguments I've heard tonight have moved it in squarely, and the nights leading up to this squarely move it into the should do, but it's still for me not a must do. I kind of liken it to flying in an airplane, and you see the mountain and you see it first. And I would say that I wasn't the only one seeing it first 4 years ago, but I saw the mountain. And now that we're getting closer to the mountain, which we're calling a fiscal cliff here, I'm not sure it's a cliff, but it's certainly fiscal difficulties. I think other people are seeing it too. And if there were ever a year to take this money, leave it in free cash, and perhaps identify some what I will call one-time expenses currently being funded through the levy, that would be our task over the next couple of weeks. And I certainly have some ideas, which I won't go into tonight. But I will vote, if I were voting, and I will encourage you to vote no for those reasons. I think the Establishments Fund and all the arguments for it are noble, but I think given the current fiscal climate that at some point we have to start turning the airplane, and I think this is the year that we need to do it. I will also note that town meeting has overridden A&F's recommendation on this for the last 3 or 4 years, and so that if, regardless of what the outcome of this vote is this evening, I ask that you all, when you attend the caucus meetings, do your best to represent both sides of this argument, no matter the outcome this evening. And explain the pros and the cons as the committee saw it, based upon what you hear. So with that, I'll call the vote. Ms. Butler,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
No.
Mr. Friedman,
Yes.
Mr. Jacinto,
Yes.
Ms. Keating,
Yes.
Mr. Malaguti,
No.
Ms. O'Connor,
No.
Ms. Ramey,
Yes.
Ms. Reitman,
No.
Ms. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
No.
Ms. Tompkins,
Yes.
Mr. Trudell,
Yes.
all right, Mr. Vecchi,
No.
all right? With all precincts reporting? All right, hold on a moment. All right, let me take it for a minute, please. All right, I think we'll just redo this one again. So just checking, Ms. Butler said yes, Mr. Dunn said no, Mr. Friedman said yes, Mr. Jacinto said yes. Ms. Keating, how did you vote?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Mr. Malaguti, you voted no, as I recall? Ms.
That's
O'Connor?
correct.
Mr. Ramey?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Reitman?
No.
Ms. Richards?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Snyder?
No.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
Mr. Trudell?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Vecchi, no, correct?
No.
Okay, great. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
Eight yes, 6 no, 0 abstentions.
The motion carries. Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Canny.
Thank you very much.
And others? Well, we'll see how we make it through the next couple of articles. We may want to take a 5-minute recess at 9, but we'll try to push through these other articles. So the next thing up is to Article 16, rescind debt authorization. Ms. Lynn Barrett, Director of Finance for the town.
Article is basically rescinding remaining borrowing authorization. Sorry. So this article is just requesting to rescind a remaining borrowing authorization on a project that we do not need. We had gone to town meeting and authorized to borrow 2.4 and also funded free cash of 812 for a total of 3.2. We ended up getting a grant of about 1.5 million, which reduced what we were going to borrow. And we ended up only using $510,000 of the free cash for a total cost of the project of just shy of $2 million. So we're just rescinding debt authorization.
All right.
Super
Any
easy.
questions from the committee? Any public comment? I don't see anyone here. All right. Someone care to move Article 16, which I took out of order by mistake? Mr. Vecchi?
Okay. Motion to move Article 16.
Okay.
Second.
All right. So first by Ms. Keating, a second by Mr. Vecchi for Article 16. Any discussion? Seeing none. Ms. Butler?
Sorry, yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Friedman?
Yes.
Mr. Jacinto?
Yes.
Ms. Keating?
Yes.
Mr. Malaguti?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Ramey?
Yes.
Ms. Reitman?
Yes.
Ms. Richards is out for a moment. Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
Mr. Trudell?
Yes.
Mr. Vecchi?
Yes.
And I'll count Ms. Richards as an abstention, so 13 yes. How do you vote on Article, how do you wish to vote on Article 16, Ms. Richards? Ms. Richards votes yes, so the motion carries 14 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. Thank you. Back to Article 15. Sorry about that, Ms. Barrett.
So Article 15, this is a request, so this is in accordance with our financial management policy. So we created a pavement management plan debt stabilization fund many years ago, and we estimate every year an annual amount of motor vehicle excise to go to pay for the operating budget. Whatever we receive in excess of that gets closed out at the end of the year to free cash. We take that exact amount of what actually came in over what we budget. So this year it was, or last year was 3.1 million. So we want to put that into the pavement management plan debt stabilization fund. That money is used for the principal and interest on our road improvement program, which so far to date, we have borrowed $15 million and we've completed all of those projects. So we're paying the principal and interest on that out of this fund. And then next week at Article 18, we are going to be recommending to do some more road improvement program, and it's a combination of funding from general fund revenues and borrowing. So I encourage you to vote this transfer.
All right, any questions from the committee? I don't see anyone. All right, so with someone who hasn't made a motion, care to make a motion to approve Article 15?
So moved.
Ms. O'Connor? Ms. Reitman? All right, Ms. Reitman seconds. Any discussion among the committee? I will just say this is good fiscal and good pavement hygiene. So with that, Ms. Butler, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Friedman?
Yes.
Mr. Jacinto?
Yes.
Ms. Keating?
Yes.
Mr. Malaguti?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Ramey?
Yes.
Mr. Reitman?
Yes.
Ms.
Ms.
Reitman.
Ms. Richards?
Yes.
It's Ms. Reitman, I apologize. Ms. Richards, yes. Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
Mr. Trudell?
Yes.
Mr. Vecchi?
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Excuse me, on to Article 19.
Yeah, so Article 19, so it's been my philosophy, and this is what we try to do, is with our capital funding process, we try to use free cash, grants, other available funds to the extent possible to fund our capital projects. There are times when we authorize to borrow over the years. I don't necessarily like to borrow for equipment. So something that could have a lifespan of between 5 and 15 years. We try not to do that because we end up spending a lot more money in interest for that particular item. However, over the years, we have authorized to borrow for these significant pieces of equipment for the fire department. So in this particular case, we authorized to borrow for this piece of equipment back in 2022, in the fall of 22. And we've done a couple since then, but what happens with these things is it takes 3 to 4 years for this equipment to actually get built and arrive here in town. So we're expecting this piece of equipment this year, sometime late fall. So I'm recommending, actually, because of our free cash balance, is that we use the almost 1.5 million to pay this off with free cash and not borrow at all. So we'll be able to pay it without incurring any interest, which would be estimated about approximately $500,000 over the life of this loan.
All right, questions for Ms. Barrett? Yes, Mr. Friedman.
Just so when we talked earlier about how much free cash should be left at the end of this year that would get to be potentially certified next year, the 2.4 million or 3 million, whatever it was, which I know did not include the $500,000 a few minutes ago, I think, right?
Right.
Did include this?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, I see no one from the public, either here or virtually. So with that, who would like to make a motion that hasn't made a motion this evening to,
I'd like to,
who said that?
I did.
Mr. Snyder,
Who
maybe?
was I?
I can't tell.
It was
Mr. Snyder?
State your name, please.
It
Okay,
is Mark Snyder, I believe.
okay, Mark, thank you. We just don't see you and, all right, we got you now. All right, so Mr. Snyder moves to approve this article as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Jacinto seconds. Is there any discussion among the committee? Seeing none. Ms. Butler, how do you vote? Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Friedman?
Yes.
Mr. Jacinto?
Yes.
See if I can get this right. Ms. Keating?
Yes.
Mr. Malaguti?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Ramey?
yes.
Ms. Reitman?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
Mr. Trudell?
Yes.
Mr. Vecchi? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, and good night.
And then we're down to the Town Promotion Fund. Let me see if I can find the wording for that article here somewhere. Yes. Do we have anyone presenting on that this evening? Yes.
Good evening, this is Lauren Lind. I'm here via
Oh.
Zoom.
Thank you. Sorry to keep you waiting so long. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So, hello, everyone. I'm Lauren Lind. I'm the Director of Planning and Development, and I'm here to speak to Annual Town Meeting Article 20. So this is for the Promotion Fund. The Promotion Fund it was established by Special Act back in 1993. It authorizes the town of Plymouth to dedicate a defined portion of its local room occupancy tax to a special Plymouth Promotions Fund. This is to support tourism-related improvements and promotional activities. It establishes also a visitor services board that oversees the expenditures of this fund. They recommend, implement projects that benefit residents and the visitors by enhancing Plymouth as an attractive destination. So between the 4 quarters that came in the last year, the total for the promotion fund, what it does is it takes 45% of all of the hotel motel tax that comes in. So the balance that we're requesting a transfer for fiscal year 27 is $1,336,320. This represents just shy of a $20,000 decrease from last year's appropriation. And again, this will go into the promotion fund for the visitor service board. They will spend on there's certain line items that they are required for their contractual obligations, like the Visitors Information Center, their contract with Plymouth, and there's a 10% set aside that needs to be spent on public improvements. The remaining balance of that can be used for various event funding and marketing events that come in through their special events program grant program for the year.
All right, thank you. Before I open up for questioning, and I'll rely on Mr. Canty in case I stray, this is the motel tax. Voting yes or no for this will not affect free cash or the tax levy. So just wanted to make sure for the new people on the board understand that this is a tax that's, as it says, on hotel motel, and it goes into its own distinct fund to fund activities such as this. Ms. Richards, you have a question, and I'll get to Mr. Malaguti next.
I do. I have a question regarding how much of this goes to Plymouth. I know it's a fixed cost, but I'd like to know how much we pay Plymouth, and I'll explain why afterwards.
Certainly. So there has been a 3-year contract in place that has had an increasing amount each year. For this upcoming fiscal year, it is $513,000. I'm sorry, $513,065. For comparison, last year, the contract amount was for Plymouth was $465,000 and $365,000. So it's increased from last year.
Okay, the reason I ask is I actually, just before Christmas, went onto their website, find out what was going on in town. And the first thing I saw on their calendar was was the calendar event for Rhode Island, for Newport, for the Newport Mansions. And I had to actually scroll down to see anything in Plymouth. So it was the Newport Mansions, it was several things around Plymouth County before I could actually find something in Plymouth. So I just have a problem with how much we're paying See Plymouth to actually see anything in Plymouth. And that's just kind of a comment. But thank you for that answer.
All right, Mr. Snyder?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To our town employee, I'm looking at the budget here. We have the big year. It's 250-year anniversary of the country. There's a lot of stuff being scheduled for this year. Is there enough money in this account to promote it correctly?
So to respond to that, I know that the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism is doing a significant push on the Massachusetts 250th anniversary. So a lot of that is coming from the state. In terms of if there's any specific celebrations for the Plymouth level, I'd have to double check on the specific. We are currently accepting event applications for this upcoming fiscal year. So I'm not exactly sure what the Visitor Service Board will fund for fiscal year 27. The intent of this article is just to move the quarters that have already been received for this promotion fund set aside to move it into the promotion fund so that the Visitor Service Board can then go and allocate those to the events that will come in.
Okay, thank you, Laura.
Mr. Malaguti, excuse me, Ms. Butler?
Sorry. Hi, I have a couple of questions. We have public improvements, and that is going for what?
So it's a requirement under the special act, the legislation that was enabled in 1993, and that requires a minimum of 10% of the overall promotion fund each year to go towards public improvements. So for this year, it's a minimum of $133,632 would be the minimum they have to spend. If they would like to allocate more of the funds for public improvements, they are able to do so. It's just that they have to spend at least 10% on those.
Do you know if they're planning to spend more?
That I do not know, again, because we are accepting, the Visitor Service Board is accepting grant programs through, it actually closed at the end of this month. So at the end of January, they will have received all of their grant requests for the upcoming year. And at that time, they will go through them throughout the month of February and determine which awards they're going to make for fiscal year 27.
Okay, there's also contractual services for promotions and info center. Can you tell me what that's going for?
Correct. So the information, that's the contract with See Plymouth that was just mentioned a short while ago.
One we looked at. Okay. I went to the center this past year, and I will tell you, I was not at all impressed. Actually, I was very disappointed, and I'm hoping that we can improve that building and facility and make it more what people looking for information on Plymouth can get more information from. Thank you.
I believe Fall Town Meeting approved renovations to that building. Right, okay.
That's correct.
Mr. Malaguti?
Yes. So I want to share my other hat. I am the vice chair of the Visitor Services Board. And yes, everything that Ms. Lind has stated is correct for the actual funding mechanisms and all that. We are in the middle of our grant acceptance right now. We will then be going throughout the month of February and concluding in March with the allocations of the money for any grants that come in, including the public improvements. We've received a few so far that we are pawning over. That the public improvements are mostly things that we accept that are departments that help either with accessibility, other event enhancement and stuff like that, like the plants and flower baskets you see downtown. We do grants for some of the parks and trail works that are happening throughout the downtown that entice visitors and residents alike to these events. We also have done safety measures as well too. Last year, we spent money for the barricades, especially from the horrific things we saw in other cities and towns across the last year and a half with large vehicles or other impediments going through pedestrians and crowds. We felt that it was important, especially with large events coming, this year being the 250th anniversary of the country, that we felt these things would be an enhancement and safety measure for the public and visitors alike, and many other myriad of things that we do. We are very frugal with it. When we have flush accounts, we usually give it a lot because we want tourism to effectuate in better return for the residents through more expenditure at businesses, longer stays, which enhances the fund. And 55% of this fund goes into the general fund, so it is also helping to offset taxes and operational expenses as well too. We get the lesser of it for our operations, and we have been very fiscally prudent. Ms. Richards had stated the website. I will personally ask Ms. Filson, who is still on until they find a replacement, for her, whether there can be better allocation or if there was a glitch or something that did that, so that all of our events are received as top priority for that. So thank you for giving that. I didn't know anything about that. But yes, we also did funding for the visitor center as well too, not just through Plymouth's contract, which they do the visitor center for the year, but also that we did last year at fall town meeting for the expenditure to actually get that building up to par, because it's been in desperate need for many years. So I'm here to answer questions as well too, if any of the committee needs it as well. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Any person in the public wish to comment? All right, seeing and hearing none, who would like to make a motion to approve Article 20?
I'll motion to approve it.
All right, Ms. Richards, I think you want a second?
I will second it.
All right, great. Any discussion among the committee? All right, seeing,
I just have one discussion point.
Okay.
I want to thank Mr. Malaguti for that, and just a clarification. I did reach out to the C Plymouth, and they told me, well, if Newport Mansions pay for membership, they get to post. So I did reach out, but I didn't get very far. But thank you. If you can get farther, that would be great. Thanks.
all right, any other discussion among committee? All right. Ms. Butler, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Friedman,
Yes.
Mr. Jacinto,
Yes.
Ms. Keating,
Yes.
Mr. Malaguti,
Yeah.
Ms. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Ramey,
Yes.
Ms. Reitman,
Yes.
Ms. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins,
Yes.
Mr. Trudell,
Yes.
and Mr. Vecchi.
Yes.
Well, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Ms. Lind?
Thank you. Good evening.
All right. I assume that all subcommittees are scheduled now. Is that correct? We have,
No, I'm still waiting on the enterprise.
the enterprise funds. So, Mr. Malaguti, if you can get that scheduled and get it to Jeanette, that would be appreciated much. We're starting to run out of time.
Yes, I thought I sent it today, but I'll send it to you tonight. I'm sorry for the delay on that.
All right, very good. All right, is there any public comment? I do see nobody raising their hands, so we'll get that out of the way. So thank you for your insights and thoughtful questioning this evening for everybody. I will now take a motion to adjourn. Ms.
So
Wright?
moved.
Second.
Okay, so I heard a second from Mr. Vecchi. I didn't hear the first.
Came from me.
Ms. O'Connor is the first on that. All right, any discussion? Can't hear anything, okay. Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Friedman?
Yes.
Mr. Jacinto?
Yes.
Ms. Keating?
Yes.
Jeez, I was going to make it through almost again. Mr. Malakuti?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Ramey?
Yes.
Ms. Reitman?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Tompkins?
Yes.
Mr. Trudell?
Yes.
Mr. Vecchi?
Yes.
We are adjourned at 9:15.